8 key players to talk about today, including a couple of spicy differentials. Is Erling Haaland injured? And what do we do about Darwin? So Darwin was back to being the player that we know and love, sometimes hate, last night against Luton. 9 shots on goal, including one that really should have been buried. But the underlying data is still extremely good. We know he can be a really frustrating player to own, and I would completely understand anyone who was already worried about him. But I think you've got to back the data. More will go in than not, and he's already got 9 returns so far this season as well. The fixtures ahead, barring game week 13, are still really good, and compared to the other forwards around this sort of price point, I think that he is at the moment probably the top one to get. So I'm going to give him 4 stars out of 5, and hopefully he'll repay the faith in the next few weeks. So coming into this game week, Bukayo Saka was always going to be one of the top players that were on most people's watch lists, especially ahead of this fixture run. Burnley at home is a fantastic jumping on point, and then after that the fixtures stay good for quite a long amount of time. The problem is Arsenal and Saka aren't in particularly great form at the moment, but I think when you look at just how bad Burnley have been recently and this season in general, I'd use this game as a kickstarter, hopefully for Arsenal's returns to start flowing again, and Bukayo Saka does still seem to be at the centre of most of those. The underlying data is still fantastic, and I get the feeling he's probably going to be on the next penalty to get him back up and running again soon. So I'm actually going to give him the maximum 5 stars out of 5. I think he is a good buy this week. And with that fixture against Burnley, I think it's just so good. Even without the form at the moment, I still back him to return very soon. Matty Cash has been a very frustrating player to own all the way back since I wildcarded back in game week 8 to bring him in. And even though the underlying data is still very strong, 0.32 XG per 90 for a defender is fantastic. It does seem to be that he's not really securing the actual points at the moment, and I haven't really been seeing him getting forward that much, so I'm not sure where that data is coming from. I think it's probably backdated a little bit from the start of the season. He's also gone off injured in game week 11, so do monitor that one. I'm not sure how bad the injury looks. I think it was probably precautionary, and that he'll probably start in game week 12 against Fulham, which is, of course, a fantastic fixture. But do we even want Aston Villa assets in our side for many more weeks? I would suggest probably not. After game week 14 is out of the way, Man City and Arsenal in 15 and 16 is probably the ideal jumping off point. And if he is injured for game week 12, the next 4 aren't great other than that Bournemouth fixture in game week 14. So I'd suggest that he's probably a sell if he's injured. However, because we don't know that yet, I'm still going to put him down as 2 stars out of 5. He has been frustrating. I think you could sell him, but with 2 out of the next 3 fixtures, if he's fit, being quite good, I think you could also hold on to him just for a little while longer and hope the returns start coming. So I suppose we better talk about Jeremy Doku after that performance over the weekend. A lot of us would have captained Erling Haaland, obviously very frustrating there, but the City player that stole the show was Doku, and he has looked electric in recent game weeks. I think even the 22-point haul that he got this game week was actually more than quite a few of us have scored across our entire team. So it's clear to see why he's of interest this game week. However, if we look at the fixtures to come, Chelsea, Liverpool, Tottenham and Villa in the next 4, that's not fantastic. There are a lot of good other options around this price point. And the underlying data doesn't suggest that returns are going to continue week in, week out for him either. And when we also factor in the fact that Grealish is waiting in the wings, he will get minutes as well. I'm not convinced that Doku's going to start every single game. I'm actually only going to rate him 2 stars out of potential 5, because I think he could be a little bit of a trap unless we see that those minutes really increase over the next few game weeks. Tsimikas was the most bought player ahead of game week 11 against Luton away. That was perfectly understandable, but of course he ended up being benched. So looking at the logic behind that benching, I think it's fair to say that Klopp probably wanted Gomez for his aerial ability against Luton away from home. That does make sense, and even though I don't think it was necessarily predictable going into game week 11, that's something that we should apply moving forward, and that will colour my thinking, even though I bought him in game week 11 myself. Brentford at home is on paper a pretty decent fixture, but they're good in the air as well. So it's not out of the realms of possibility that Tsimikas wouldn't play in that game. I think the one thing in his favour is obviously Liverpool need points on the board. They did slip up against Luton, so maybe he comes in just to freshen it up. And I think he is just fundamentally a better left back overall than Gomez. So I hope that he comes back in, but because I'm not confident in that, I'm actually only going to give him 3 stars out of 5 this game week. He was the maximum last week at 5 stars, but now because we don't know whether or not he's going to be getting rotated every now and then, I think that rating's got to come down a little bit. But looking at the fixtures, still a decent buy, but I'd probably just hold off for the next 2 weeks just to see if he continues starting games or not. Well, Erling Haaland has blanked and went off injured in the 45th minute in what was touted as probably the captainable fixture this game week. A lot of us were left very frustrated by Haaland, but it is important to note that the underlying data is still absolutely fantastic. Over 1 XG per 90 is amazing. And he's got 11 goals in 11 game weeks so far this season already. So I think it's important to set our emotions from this game week aside and focus on the bigger picture. If you've still got Erling Haaland, I'd understand the frustration and the idea that you might be able to spread the funds elsewhere and get some other strikers in. But based on this game week, are there really that many other strikers you actually want at the moment? And as long as he's not injured for Chelsea, which by the way, Pep was fairly confident by the sounds of it that he should be back by next Sunday, if not even in midweek in the Champions League. So we'll know more before we get there. If he is confirmed out, then fine, I think you can probably look at selling him. But if he's fit, those next 4 fixtures, even though they don't look great on the ticker, I'd still suggest are prime for Erling Haaland returns. We know he can score hatfuls against anyone. So I think you just stay the course for the time being as long as he's fit. I'm still going to give him 4 stars out of 5. I don't think he's an absolute must because as we know, there are strategies out there that are doing well without Erling Haaland at the moment. But if you've got him, I would say just stay the course and hopefully the returns will come soon. Eberechi Eze is finally back fit and firing again, and he is probably the differential to target ahead of game week 12. Looking at the fixtures ahead, Everton, Luton, West Ham, Bournemouth in the next 4 are fantastic fixtures for Palace, and he is very talismanic for them. As you can see from the underlying data, 0.31 XG per 90 and 0.26 XA per 90, it's clear to see why Palace were struggling a little bit without him, and as soon as he comes back into the side, they start looking much better again. I think he has been very unlucky not to get more returns than he has done so far this season. Only 1 goal and 2 assists means that most people probably won't consider him ahead of game week 12, but at 6.1 million, I think that he's arguably a better asset to be buying right now than some of the 6.5s or even the players up to 7 million. So he is my differential to target this week. I'm actually going to go bold and say he's 5 stars out of 5. If you can get to him and if you've got a transfer spare, I reckon he's going to be fantastic value for money for the next stretch. So I'm going 5 out of 5 on Eberechi Eze. I've ran over on a couple of players this week, so I'm going to try and be very quick about Jamal Lascelles. 4 million, 3.7 ownership, and with Botman out for the foreseeable, he seems to have had a bit of a setback. That could be long term. 4 million for a nailed Newcastle defender, even without the underlying data to back him up in an attacking sense. Clean sheets are still fairly reliable for Newcastle. 2 good fixtures in the next 5 isn't ideal, but Bournemouth and Everton are good. You can probably bench him as well in the other weeks. If he's 4 million, you've probably got money elsewhere for 3 or 4 other good defenders. So again, I'm actually going to go 5 stars out of 5 on Lascelles. I think there's no reason why you shouldn't be going for him if you've got a spare transfer at the moment. And with Botman out for the foreseeable, I think he's a great pickup. So I've been pretty generous with my ratings this game week. 3 players getting the maximum value of 5 stars out of 5, which I don't expect I'll be doing much this season at all. There are some interesting moves to make. Haaland is debatable as well, as always. So please do let me know in the comments below how you would have rated the players that I've had a look at today. And if there are any other players you'd like me to give a rating to ahead of the Game Week 12 deadline. In the meantime, I'd really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe to the channel. That'd be very, very helpful for me. And hopefully I'll see you for my next video as I take a look at my team selection ahead of Game Week 12 on Thursday morning.